Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to WCNC Plus's Live Weather Impact Show. I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich will be back tomorrow, so no worries. But we have a lot of weather to talk about. So truthfully, let's get right into the forecast. Today has been a devastating day in the world of weather as Hurricane Melissa made landfall just before 1 o'clock in Jamaica as a Category 5 hurricane. Maximum sustained wind at the time of landfall, 185 miles an hour with minimum pressure of 892. Now, I'm going to get into some of these numbers. Of course, we'll talk more about this coming up with Tim Buckley, but Melissa, not only the strongest storm to ever impact Jamaica since record keeping began in the 1850s, but it is the strongest storm to ever make landfall. In fact, the record for strongest winds is 190 miles per hour from Allen back in 1980, but that storm never actually made landfall. So strongest storm to make landfall. It also is tied for number 2 in the highest winds, tied for number 3 with the lowest pressure. And remember, high winds and low pressure are 2 indicators of a strong hurricane. So I know we've been talking about Melissa a lot over the past few days, but the storm is going to continue to impact the islands over the next 24 to 36 hours. You can see the eye of Melissa has now reemerged into the open ocean. As it's done so, the storm has maintained Category 4 hurricane strength. And I don't think we talk about this enough in this storm. Yes, technically, from the time of landfall, we're down 40-mile-per-hour winds, but it is still a powerful Category 4 and is still going to indicate a lot of land. Because of the western side here of Jamaica, I'm going to point this out for us here on the map since we already have it. Think about how skinny this side is. It looks like my thing doesn't want to draw. Okay, so think about how skinny the western side of the island is compared to the eastern side. So because it makes landfall on the western side, not only did it spend less time over land, which means it had less time to weaken as it moved over that land, because the drag of the land typically allows for a storm to weaken, and it spends time over land versus water, which means no warm water to sustain it. But it didn't spend that much time over land, 1. And 2, because it made landfall on the western side of the island, if you remember from Friday, Tim and I were talking about this, but that meant that the eastern side of the island was set up horribly for maximum storm surge, maximum winds, and also a higher risk for tropical tornadoes and a severe weather risk. Now the storm is beelining for eastern Cuba, and by tomorrow morning, so by the time you are waking up Wednesday, getting your day going, the storm will have already made landfall in eastern Cuba, likely as a Category 4. From there, by tomorrow afternoon, it's heading toward the Bahamas. Now, right now, it looks like the storm will be just west of Turks and Caicos, but I just want us to keep a few things in mind, and this is not I guess it's not a doom scroll because you guys, I guess, may be watching on your phone, but probably at home. This is not as scary. We want to just tell you all the horrible things about Melissa. It's just the reality of what's happening. At this point, there's nothing that we can do to help the people here in these islands. We only can do what we can now on the back end and offer support if at all possible. But these areas, 1, are very tourism driven. Right? 2, a lot of them have very poverty-stricken areas, if not the entire country. And so they rely on this tourism. It's already harder than normal for them to evacuate if those options even exist. But think about somewhere like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I use this example a lot during the newscast. I'm not trying to imply at all that it's easy for people to evacuate. But think, if you have the means, you're going west, you're in Tennessee, Kentucky, the western North Carolina mountains, in Ohio, Missouri, wherever your friends and family live, that you're able to do so. If you're on an island like Jamaica or even the Bahamas or even eastern Cuba, I guess they have more places to go, but you don't really have a lot of options in terms of where to go. And if you've seen the satellite images like you just saw of Melissa, the storm encompassed the entire island, not just where the storm made landfall. So this is devastating, catastrophic. The latest update I saw recently was about 250,000 people without power from JPS, which is their energy server, but likely that number goes up. The island has just under 3 million people who live there. We're probably going to see more numbers go up, of course, in terms of power outages. And some of these smaller areas could be isolated for days, if not weeks, if not months, if not years. If you think back to 2017 with Hurricane Maria, when it made landfall in Puerto Rico, some of that infrastructure damage from that storm almost 10 years ago still exists today. And because Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, they have a lot of options because of the U.S. government that even some of these places, let's say like Jamaica, don't even have. So that's so to say that we really want to make sure people understand the magnitude of this storm. It's not just about how strong it was, winds, pressure, the fact that it's abnormal to see strong storms like this at the end of the year or at the end of hurricane season, but it is also going to be devastating for not just one area, but multiple areas. By the time we're at the end of this week, we're going to be looking at the storm heading toward Bermuda, and then eventually it's out to sea as a post-tropical cyclone. There is a small chance that it could clip eastern parts of maritime Canada by the end of this week, but by then it'll be well out to sea, and as a post-tropical cyclone could eventually impact the UK. So winds obviously going to be a big issue here because that's what brings down a lot of the infrastructure. These areas have already seen tons of rain, an additional 15 to 20, 25, not only for Jamaica, but for eastern Cuba, and then eventually the islands as the storm continues to head northeast. I mentioned this a second ago, but Melissa is one of the strongest Category 5 hurricanes to ever occur this late in the season. The only ones stronger later was Halloween back in 1961. We had Hurricane Hattie and an unnamed storm from 1932. So again, it's very, very abnormal to see a storm of this magnitude this late in hurricane season. Normally, it's about Hurricane Michael timeframe, which is about October 10th, that we kind of see a lot of that cutoff so in the year so far. So we have a lot to talk about locally, of course, as well. Starting to see a nice little break of rain right now. We'll stay drizzly, we'll stay cloudy, we'll stay chilly over the next few hours with more areas of light rain returning Wednesday morning. Rainfall totals so far today, most spots, let's say generally around 1/4 of an inch. That's on top of yesterday, at least in Charlotte. We saw an inch and change, which comes out to about 1.5 inches for the last 2 days. Definitely need it. Is it causing a flooding risk? The good news is no. But how much more could we see? Well, about another 1/2 inch to 1 inch possible for most of the Piedmont. The mountains could see a higher chance of rain and rainfall accumulation because of tomorrow. And so we're going to take a closer look at that future cast. So here's the drier conditions now. There's 7 o'clock. Areas of light rain returning. Now, we saw a lot of light rain yesterday, but I think the heaviest we'll see with this entire event comes in Wednesday night. Here's 4 o'clock. There's those areas of rain, mainly up toward the mountains west of 77. Notice it starts to get heavier by the time our newscast starts, so 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and of course we'll be here on Live Weather Impact at 6:30. And then it's pretty much out of here by Thursday morning. So there is more rain to come, but right now is probably a nice little break time from some of the heavier rain that we saw yesterday, but more heavy is to come. Halloween weekend starts on Friday. It's really nice to have, I think, Halloween on a Friday for not just the adults, but also the kiddos. I would suggest probably adding a long sleeve shirt, maybe leggings, pants, tights, something underneath the costumes, maybe a coat if you need it, right, for the more sensitive kids, but not sensitive emotionally, but sensitive basically to the cold, like myself. I was one of those kids, because it unfortunately is going to be on the chillier side. If you're trick-or-treating in the direct sunshine, it will feel more comfortable with highs in the 60s, but at night we're in the upper 30s and lower 40s. So it is going to be on the chillier side. Make sure that they are staying safe, staying weather aware for some of that chill. We could see our first upper 30s of the season so far by Saturday morning, but overall a great weekend ahead as we'll stay sunny, we'll stay on the cooler side, and then eventually Saturday night we fall back, right? Extra hour of sleep. More on the forecast coming up with Tim Buckley as we talk about what's happening with Melissa and have an update on a storm system that's bringing impacts to the Outer Banks. That's all coming up in just about 2 minutes.